Welcome to our podcast, Protect and Prevent. My name is Opal Singleton. I am the president and CEO of Million Kids. So, what I want to talk about today is there such a thing as digital morality, or is there digital empathy, maybe? How about digital ethics? Or, of course, we all know there's a digital reputation. So, this podcast is brought to you by Million Kids. We're an organization that combats online exploitation and sex trafficking, and have been doing that, located in Southern California for the past 15 years and across the United States. But more and more, I grapple with this idea of, do our kids understand about digital morality? In fact, it's a discussion that I think everybody kind of goes, well, of course there is, but is there such a thing? I say that because the statistics indicate that 1 out of 6 boys and 1 out of 7 girls have literally sent a nude online. And I find that fascinating because we now know that with the changes in technology, a nude online is basically can be a death sentence at the very latest, or least, let's say. It can be a very difficult imposition on your life. You can be humiliated and shamed and even cyberbullied. And so I want to talk about that because I often talk with pastors and teachers and people that are on the front line with young people, and they say, "Well, that's an interesting discussion." And I'm saying it is a discussion that ought to be had with every young person before they ever go online. And I say that because, first of all, I don't think that most families understand what it meant a couple of years ago when we heard the announcements that the entire world was connected by internet. We all know that, but we don't always think out what that means. And I think that before any other young person is placed online with a device of any kind, there should be an adult conversation with them. And it should be an open conversation, not a finger wagging conversation that thou shalt not. That isn't what this is all about. You see, about 2022, the entire world started to be connected by 5G high speed internet. That means your young people are going online with more than 5.5 billion other people. And we assume they're going to make good choices. But I think that as adults, we owe it to our young people and ourselves to think that out and to back up and think that over again. You see, what happens here is so many times now, it was the young people that led the way with technology. Let's face it, our kids are smarter than us when it comes to this technology stuff. They know immediately how it works. But what they don't know and what they don't seem to understand is those in-depth long-term decisions that you make based on your moral standards. I think that because I think that if you talk with young people, they'll say, "Oh, mom, oh, dad, I know I'm going to know when I'm being catfished. I'll know when I'm in trouble, and I'll be careful." And the interesting answer to that question is, how will you know? Most of us in a relationship, we have that gut instinct that lets us know when we might be in trouble. But how do we put that gut instinct into our kids? Most young people, if you ask them how are they going to know if they're being catfished, they'll go, "Well, it'll feel wrong or it'll feel odd." Most of our kids are making their relationships online with the same criteria they use as if they can see the person in real life. But it is not the same criteria at all. And here's why I say that. Because now what you have is foreign groups impacting our kids. My next podcast will be all about radicalization of young people online, of literally how there are terrorist groups trying to impact our kids and using all their favorite platforms like Discord and Roblox and all those things that we trust. There are groups of pedophiles now that are teaching teenagers online to how to be a pedophile, how to violate young children. There are all kinds of groups out there of extremists and people that want to radicalize our children. There's also groups out there of what we call financial sextortion. If you've heard my other podcast, you're probably familiar with that. But basically, now that the entire world is connected by internet, what can happen is groups out of Nigeria and Ivory Coast and Myanmar and like that, they come on to our kids and they will look like some 14-year-old girl. They specifically target very successful young guys, and they will look like a hot 14-year-old girl that kind of knows them. And if they don't really know them, they at least know people that they know. And that is the gut instinct that our kids have learned to use to judge who is out there. But here's the problem with that: the folks overseas have figured out that American teenagers will send a nude at the drop of a hat, and they have access to plenty of money. And they have found a way to enter into our kids' life so they look like a friend of a friend. The exact same criteria that your child is using to be able to determine if they're going to be in trouble or not. So, as our team has thought this out, we've talked a little bit about how do we have those conversations with our young people about digital morality. Because you see, what will happen is they are expecting this to be somebody who seems creepy. Well, they're not going to seem creepy, and I'll tell you why. These folks already have access to your kid's profile, and it is no accident they are going after the best of the best. You know why? Because our kids' information, especially if they're especially successful, is everywhere online. So I want you to have a conversation with your young person. The first thing is, how well do you know yourself? Have you Googled yourself? Have you Googled your parents? Have your parents Googled you? Have you looked to see if your house is on Google Earth? Is the inside of your house available online through Zillow? Has your child received some sort of award, or maybe they got a scholarship, or they're being recruited by somebody? And all of that is information. So now, not only do people in Nigeria and Ivory Coast have global 5G high-speed internet, they have artificial intelligence. So they will be the sharpest people you can find that will look like someone your child knows. On top of it, if your child's Instagram followers and their Facebook, or they're probably not on Facebook, but their TikTok followers are public, this person will automatically be a friend of a friend because they can name all the friends because it is public information. So your child's instincts are going to be not so sharp when it comes to picking up when they may be in trouble online. And that takes me back to a discussion, an important discussion. I honestly believe that before anybody is put online, they ought to have this discussion. What about digital morality? Who am I? Define your values and know who you are. Write them down. Share them amongst your family. If someone sends you a nude, are you going to send it on? If someone sends you a nude of someone you know, are you going to laugh and then share it with other people, or maybe, reject that person? Because why is this so important? Every one of our kids will be a victim of deep fakes at some time. I've handled more than one case where the young person is going, Mom, that's not me. Okay, it's my head, but that's not me. and nobody will believe me, and I'm being bullied. Well, here's what's important. First of all, it's important to know who you are and what you stand for so that you understand when someone who is a friend of a friend starts sending you any kind of sexual images, you're going to know that they don't share your values. And you're going to know that they won't care if they bring you down. And if you return that image, you need to know that image is going to be out there for the rest of your life. Yes, they have the Take It Down Act, but it's limited in its capacity to remove online images. The minute an image is put online, people all around the world can change it with literally with your deep fake and your artificial generative AI. And so the first thing we need to do is talk with our kids and say, who are you and how are you going to respond if somebody sends you a nude? How are you going to respond if someone says they have a nude of you? How are you going to respond if you get a nude of somebody you know? Do you have digital empathy? Do you have digital moral values? Besides the fact that so many of these people can literally change your life by having a nude online, it is a statement about who you are and your digital reputation. And that is so important, especially for very young people just now going online. We need to be able to understand that your digital reputation will now follow you for the rest of your life. And as technology gets more and more complex, it will be shared, it will be altered, and it will be used in ways that you can't imagine. So we need the conversation about who we are. One of the reasons this is so important, and I am not a prude, believe me, I understand real life activity. But one of the things that happens is many of our young people have been raised in a generation of animated pornography. And they will tell you that it's not really sin. In fact, I had 1/4 of a young youth group tell me that sin on the internet wasn't sin because it wasn't real. I hope that works out for them. Okay. But it's an interesting thing because what they will tell you is when it's animated, it's not real, so it doesn't count as far as morality. In many of our video games, there's animated sexuality of all kinds. Besides the fact that they're killing cops and like that, and that's an interesting discussion. Is it okay to kill a cop as long as it's only animated? Is it okay to have sex with a prostitute as long as it's only animated? And if you kill her, you can get your money back so that you can increase your points and win more games. And so kids are exposed to all kinds of animated pornography that they accept as normal. But how does that play out in defining who they are and what their values are? And so this is important not only for this generation of young people, but let's say you have a 14-year-old son that you're talking to about this and you have an 11-year-old daughter. Can you imagine how complex the world is going to be for that 11-year-old daughter when she's 14? So I think that is an important place for teachers, for youth ministers, for parents to sit down and have some of these interesting subjects and discuss them, not with a wagging finger, not with a judgmental, but to get these young people to start to use cognitive thinking. There is another reason why I think this is ever so important. And that is because all the artificial intelligence out there is changing the conversation and changing the reality of what is truth. I see it, you see it. How many times a day do we get headlines that are full of emotional words? And we need to have those conversations with our young people. Look at this article. Look at this article. Is there any truth to it? How do we evaluate truth online? And how do we teach them to evaluate it? We are just getting started. In 2026, we will look back on these as days that seem like child's play, because I will get a headline. I might get 6 or 7 headlines. The first thing I look for on the headline is who is producing it and what is their digital reputation for being honest. What is the goal of the article? Because right now online, and this will be my next podcast, there are all kinds of groups that are terrorist groups, groups that are radicalizing our children, groups that are activists, either right-wing extremists or left-wing extremists, and they have a motivation to impact our young people and take over their thinking. So it is more important than ever to talk with our children to understand that they develop their own morality, that they develop their own set of standards, okay? Because they are going to be hit with a barrage of minutia of people who want them to think one way or the other. This is ever so critical. Teach them about these high emotion headlines. Look at who wrote whatever is out there. Is that somebody you respect? Look up the author. What do they stand for? Is that somebody you want to be like? Are there all kinds of emotional words in it? Like, they knocked it out of the ballpark. They brought them to their knees. There's all of these words that are not only emotional, but they have implications of doing people in, taking them down. The highly salacious articles, and then you and I, because we're a little bit older, will read that article and go, "That's crap. There's nothing in there like that." There's nothing about that actual subject. That is called clickbait. They're trying to get you to click on it. By the way, while you're having this conversation with your teenagers, you might want to have it with grandma and grandpa too, because it happens to them all the time. It is a way for people to access you and change your thinking. So in the future, our kids are going to live in a world where there's virtually little truth, little accuracy, and oftentimes little statements that have anything to do with what they're trying to tell you. But what is more important, there are terrorist groups and foreign national groups all over the world looking to access your kid to influence them or to make money off of them or to bring them down. And if your child is still using the old favorite of, depending on a friend of a friend for their criteria, then you need to stop in your tracks and have this conversation today. I encourage you to make this a mission, a priority. Make it a positive kind of relationship with your child. Certainly, I don't have anything against filters and monitoring your child's phone and all of that. But I also think we need to back up as a Christian society and say that this is one of the most important times in all of history as a call to leadership, that we teach our children how to live in a world where you cannot verify who is on the other line. But what you can do is know who you are and what you stand for. You can define your ethics. You can define your morality. You can create empathy within an individual to help them understand what it's like to be used and blackmailed, so that your young person is a leader, so that if someone else they know is being blackmailed, that they can take the high road and stand beside them, not reject them, not laugh at them, not ostracize them, but help them take that individual to an adult they can trust to get intervention, because you might be next. And on top of it, it is who you are and what you stand for. And so I want to encourage you to think about all of this. This is heavy, heavy discussion. I get it. But what is online now is forever. And that can't be fixed. Our kids need to understand that. Yes, we have laws that if you've sent a nude, you can get it back, but only if it's the exact hashtag and only if someone saved that image. Now, I applaud Melania Trump for doing the Take It Down Act, but we are just getting started. We need to start at home to prepare our kids to grow up to be moral leaders with a strong moral compass, whether they're online or in person, that they don't engage in pornography, that they are not tempted to send a nude that can destroy their life forever. But equally important, every one of us can become the victim of something and we can make a mistake. So that conversation needs to be, we're on a journey together. You're the first generation that's had this much opportunity and this much responsibility, but you've also got the most opportunity to become a victim of exploitation. I want you to promise me that you will take the high road, that you will define your character, that you'll define your values, and that you will do everything possible not to become a victim of exploitation. But if you find yourself in a jam, if you find yourself that you've made a mistake and you're embarrassed and you think you're going to be rejected, I want you to promise me that you'll know that I will stand beside me and beside you, and we will stand together. Come to me and share it, and let's figure it out. Because if you're willing to come to me and let us look it up, then we can help others who are being exploited to find freedom. So even if we end up making mistakes, and we all do, and we will, it's a fast changing world, it is not too late to turn it around. We can find solutions for you. Don't listen to them. They will try to bring you down. But you are a person with a moral compass. You are a person who knows who you are and what you stand for. And even if you didn't measure up that time, you are a person that will help others and yourself find solutions, correct your mistakes, and save others as you can. My name is Opal Singleton, and this podcast is called Protect and Prevent. I hope you will share this podcast with everyone you know. I hope you will go to millionkids.org, and I hope that you will join in and sign up for our newsletter so that you will see the additional podcasts. I hope you get yourself involved. I hope that you will start to pay attention and educate yourself to be ready to be a leader in the next generation of online leadership. And I hope that if you have a question, you'll send me an email. My name is Opal, OPAL, at millionkids.org. I hope maybe that you might be willing to share with us financially and support our work. You can do that by going to millionkids.org. I also encourage you to educate yourself further. I just released a new book. It's called Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line. It is at millionkids.org in an audio form and a download. And you can also get it at Amazon in a paperback, and you can get the Kindle version. Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line. I hope you'll become a digital warrior, and that you will take this cause on, and that you will have these discussions with your young person in your life. And it will put away the wagging finger, and we will resolve to make our young people an opportunity for them to define what it means for digital leadership, digital reputation, digital empathy, and digital morality. And they will share that with the people of their faith and share that with their friends at school. Thank you for listening. I'll see you again shortly on our next podcast. Protect and Prevent. My name's Opal Singleton, millionkids.org. Be sure and sign up for that newsletter. See you next podcast.